about with IPv6 right now at your company. If you aren't doing something with it right now, what is it that's blocking you? Are you having trouble maybe getting support from an organization for doing it? Or are you trying to think through a certain design? Or, you know, what is it? Or if you're in the middle of implementing it, what's slowing you down or snagging you up? Because collectively in this room we have a tremendous amount of knowledge. You know, we can interesting discussion. So, anybody?
Okay, I'll start.
Yeah.
So where I am now, we're mostly networking, not so much server infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So all our stuff is hosted at Amazon v6. So the push will be, now maybe we have to lump in Cloudflare in front of Amazon as well, where we're already maybe doing ELB. Now we're going to have extra Cloudflare content stuff in front of that. It annoys the ever-living out of me. So having been pushing production v6 for 15 years. So yeah, makes sense. Google's no better. Google, there's no v6 in their cloud thing either, and I have yet the desire to touch Azure, but maybe that'll change.
It doesn't have v6 either.
Now I don't want to touch it. So
I wonder why Google does it.
It's, you go to the Google Cloud GCI, GCP, whatever the thing is. It's like, while Google is the forefront of IPv6, we didn't put it in this product. So, yeah.
Well, it's like more like a business priorities, right?
Yeah, it's a business priority when you have like very few % of your users using v6. Like when you have a product manager, I'm an advocate of v6 at Google. It's kind of these fights that we have internally. We are launching products and we find out that it's not v6, so we try to delay that, but sometimes it's money versus the good
Getting it to market before, you know,
pardon?
Getting it to market before you
Yeah, exactly. Because you have, well, in the case of cloud, you have Amazon, you have you have Microsoft, so you have to deliver as quickly as possible. And when you have to say v6 is gonna delay us like 3 or 4 months, maybe, I don't know, just saying a number, but do it now for 90% of the users or 99% of the users, you just go for before. That's one of the problems, for example. And I don't know defending Google because I work there. It's part of the question that we do always, and we always try to fight against decisions that.
Amazon does have load balance services available for v6. It's not a perfect answer, but it is available. And then I know, you know, with Lorenzo and Eric off in Japan not being on campus anymore, it's probably caused some structural problems for Google to have as much influence about v6 practice being pushed on all of Google's services. And we've been not necessarily on campus every day either, even though he's supposed to have that sort of influence. It's tough, you know, their product line manager is going to get a product out before they're going to worry about that. I will tell you that, you know, I mean, Tina is working pretty hard on getting, you know, Amazon, they have structural problems internally. And so v6 will actually help them fix some of the structural problems they have in terms of growth. So I think that's going to be something that will change for Amazon pretty quickly. I know that, you know, Albert Greenberg and you know, Corey Sanders and a bunch of others up at Microsoft on the Azure team realize that they need to get v6 done. They're just running into some problems about some of the hardware selections that were done for their data center side and multicast. So multicast being their principal problem, and Albert's just not a huge fan of multicast to begin with. So they have to solve some structural things about how they want to get v6 to operate properly, both as infrastructure and as tenant capability. So
because I've got other things that are coming up, at some point I'll probably also be trying to utilize VPC, and I'm not seeing IPv6 IP tunnels there either.
You cannot actually deploy, so at least within Azure, within like a VNet, you can't deploy any v6. It will break topology-wise between hosts for even things like neighbor discovery.
Yeah, see, my issue
RAs.
is I roll dual stack.
Right,
inside,
right.
so-
Yeah, and VPC has some structural deficiencies also in similar line that are sort of per region AZ focused. So you're gonna have to be careful about how you do that there. I've gotten v6 to work for both of them by doing tunnel sets, but they're end clients. So I can play games to get v6 working, but they're all end up being tunneling solutions into the host to make v6 work over v4, which is not a particularly elegant way to do it because you're hairpinning your layer 3 all the way out to wherever you're in order to just get traffic back and forth.
And then my last issue, of course, is Route 53 if I'm using it for DNS.
Yeah, I can't.
Serves records perfectly fine, but doesn't listen on v6. So,
Right.
my issue is, yeah, small little thing. I don't want to run too much server infrastructure. I go to the cloud providers. It's not there. So it's,
It's SoftLayer, DreamHost, a couple others. Like
DigitalOcean.
DigitalOcean.
Maybe not DigitalOcean.
DO has services available. They're just not available ubiquitously. And
Yeah.
anyone who's rolling OpenStack is going to have structural problems anyway, because v6 support in OpenStack is pretty much horrible. I can say universally, it's just awful. No matter what John wants to say on the Comcast side, they did not fix any of it. In some ways, they made it worse because some of the design decisions they made would not be what someone who's doing v6 on a regular basis would want to do. But that's neither here nor there. I'm hoping the Docker team gets it better. So, soccer playing guys.
What can we do as a community to help with this? Because we're having trouble with DNS providers, with cloud providers, with all kinds of providers, where it's just not a priority.
Maybe as customers just go and ask for it. And if you are a big customer of one of the cloud providers, you can go and ask, and maybe it would work.
If you're the biggest customer, vote with your wallet.
And didn't Federal get a contract with it was AWS or Google for cloud services?
So
Because
for FedRAMP capabilities, there's no requirement, I don't believe. And Scott, do you know of any FedRAMP requirement for v6? I don't believe there's a FedRAMP requirement for v6. Yeah. So the federal side has not put that in as part of the requirement for any of the cloud providers to be FedRAMP certified to have v6 in there. I would like to see that. I think that would change a lot of behavior there. But both Amazon and Azure have FedRAMP capable services. Neither one of them have v6.
perhaps it's because it's offsite. So I came here from Cisco, and equipment, they were actually enforcing it. That it had to be v6 capable and certified. But that's physical gear.
Right.
And then anything that we sold that was installed on site, like I worked in Oracle for that. So if it's installed on site and run in their data center, it had to be v6 ready.
Has anyone, and with Apple's announcement on the mobile side, I thought that might be finally a trigger that for your back-end services, you're finally going to need to have something for that v6 enabled mobile device to be able to talk to, or that you're going to get better performance. You might get better capabilities to talk to a back-end service, all native transport, and with T-Mobile being v6 only for the mobile side, but not for the iPhone, and they don't have 464 XLAT. Now that the mobile app is requiring v6, right?
But you still have v6 on voice over head.
Sure. But I mean, I'm talking for the data path, right? So if you have so I think that would make things a little more interesting for that one. Obviously, for the Android side, they got 464 XLAT that handle all of that. What Verizon says they're at 70% native v6 traffic for their net.
I think to answer your question, that promote the vendors who are embracing it, have better feature parity, share with others where you see that there might be a gap, where there might be an issue with the vendor's solution. I think publicly talking about it Because there's no single source of information or single location where someone can go to and say, this vendor says they have V6 support, but by the line of everything they do before doesn't have a checkbox for V6. Where's the feature parity? What are the weird little things that they may do where I don't? You need to be aware of that. You need to be an educated consumer if you're going to buy that product or that service. So,
the New Hampshire's validation for the IPv6 certification really isn't particularly complex, and it doesn't produce anything like what you're talking about in terms
right.
of.
Well, in testing, product testing, you have to test all products to the lowest common denominator of all products. So those products that really fully embrace IPv6, no, not.
Right.
It's not a A+ or a B at C. It's not a grade, it's pass, fail. It's usually the lowest common denominator with product testing. So, checkpoint firewall passed, as a route, or you see that some of those firewalls in the UNH tests tested as a router rather than as a firewall. A lot of the firewall, SOCA, test the web application firewalls, they don't test IPv6 in their product testing. For firewalls, web application firewalls. Right. So those testing out. But it's publicly talking about what is and isn't ready. What we use.
So other than UNH, what about like gold, silver on IPv6 ready?
It's the same.
Okay.
That's the laboratory that does the
Yeah, they're probably the most famous of the IPv6 ready logo certified testing facilities to do that. Actually, they do a good job for what they provide to the community of saying at least these base minimum of feature supported services work. The problem is that I don't think they're granular in the way that most of us need them to be for usability purposes, right?
Like, for example, RFC 6204 is IPv6 capability in the home gateway. And it says, so it's all the stuff that you want your home router to do with IPv6, all the good stuff you expect to function. And it says you should do 1692, which is simple security for IPv6, which says a home gateway should prevent unsolicited inbound connections for V6, allow outbound, shouldn't send a routing advertisement on the WAN side, should send a routing advertisement on the WAN side, basic stuff like that. Well, because it's a should, for UNH tests home gateways, they test 6204, but don't test 1692. And so you could buy a home gateway that was stamped,
V6 ready.
UNH or IPv6 ready home gateway, but it doesn't be security ready.
Jewel, I mean, not do it.
So they didn't test it because they had to test the lowest common denominator, should instead of a must. So
This is why you hear all the screaming in the ITF about should versus must versus shall versus.
So that's an example of a product.
But how many users will look on this V6 sign? Is it ready or not? I believe that it should be more or less like end user goal. If it's V6, that means that the user experience will be better. So it should bring some value to the average or low average user, right? We as an engineer, we understand the benefits.
But I don't think V6 actually makes the user experience better for everything, right? There's so much infrastructure that doesn't have V6 configured. So many CDNs that don't support it. And every image-based website uses a CDN, which, all the rich media that people are looking after on their phone. And that then forces, the people who own those apps and those websites would then have to be forced into decisions with providers who support V6. And
Well,
right
so
now,
so
those
V6
are
is
expensive ones.
yeah. So Akamai, Limelight, and Cloudflare all support V6. Cloudflare has it on by default, but Akamai and Limelight you actually have to go in and check the box.
Yeah.
Does it cost additional?
No, they got rid of that. But I think the reality is that Akamai is looking at changing their policy so that it will be on by default. The problem is that structurally so at the World 6 Congress, they were going over some of the problems and challenges that go on with turning it on by default with certain topology configurations, that they need to do a couple of things to make sure that they have things done right for the customers, so that the right behavior happens sort of uniformly for everyone, because it could cause some pretty serious hiccups for certain individuals that have their CDN deployed in a particular way. And so they're trying to work through all of that on the back channel side to make sure it's all correct, so that they can have that as net new customers come on board with Akamai. It's just v6 enabled automatically. Their content gets pushed out that way, and it's DNS resolver based, so the customer doesn't even necessarily know. Right. It's going to work better for mobile. It's going to work better for anyone who's got v6 enabled, and that's that. But Akamai's footprint, if I remember from the World v6 Congress, was pretty substantial in terms of the size of deployment they have for v6 availability. It's not as big as v4, obviously, but it's pretty large. Sure. I was shocked, actually, how large it was.
Limelight is not as large.
Limelight is not as large. Limelight is not as large. Yeah. But Limelight's not as big, period. I mean,
sure. And
Cloudflare, Cloudflare is doing things a little differently in terms of their architectural design. So that's a whole different challenge of how they do crazy BGP anycast at scale. I don't know how long that's going to last, but it'll be interesting to see how their stuff turns out. Yeah, I imagine they've been doing pretty good so far. But.
And then I think a further complication of that problem is some of the brands that can actually put their foot down and say, no, you must support this, don't do their own.
Yeah.
And so then the pressure that they could apply to some of the commercial players isn't there because they're not using it.
Right. So Google, Facebook, others that have a large enough data center footprint are all fighting in that same space.
Yep.
Well, I think to me, I see the market today as the laggards being enterprise, right? So it's sort of the home, Comcast taking care of the home space, along with some others that are taking care of that. The mobile providers are sort of taking care of that side. And the big content providers seem to be taking care of it. It's really that sort of enterprise space that seems to be having the biggest lag of adoption or even any concerns about v6. And certainly some of the born in the cloud startups are starting to pay more attention because of the mobile backend side and realizing that all their traffic's going v6 anyway, and they're starting to want to get more data about their users and what's going on, and they're like, it makes sense that we have to start v6 enabling our backend to be able to handle and understand what's going on there. So I've had more and more conversations with, born in the cloud and IoT folks that are like, v6 just makes sense and I need to get on board with it. But the enterprise folks have been like the painfully slow adopters.
Right. SMB is also a laggard as well. I would think, in some ways, SMB can leapfrog large enterprises if they use cloud services and those cloud services they enable. And they leapfrog them because so many of the cloud services aren't v6 ready because they have to pull them off.
Right.
So you could be more mobile with cloud services.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think the biggest thing you see some of the Fortune 100, 500 starting to pay attention to it, but anybody not a Fortune 1000.
Well, you should know. We're getting hired on the same firm, so.
What about websites, such as LinkedIn? What's the adoption rate?
7
to 10%.
But these are like 7 of the top 10 big websites are all dual protocol now.
Right. I know Alon's numbers are pretty good on that one, right? Because they take the Alexa 50, I think. So.
But it's tricky. Let's say even in my lab, if you take iPhone, you connect and make it V6 onboard, you will not be able to do anything with the device. Apple's services are available beside the front page on the website. Google, I had similar videos. Yes, I can search, but if you go to Play Store, try to play some movies, it doesn't work. That doesn't work. Again, probably it depends on what kind of CDN they use. Not enough users, it's again chicken and egg problem.
I think the consensus has been that things are starting to turn in terms of the adoption cycle. I mean, certainly, and at Cisco Live for the V6 panel, we had 200 plus people in the room. That was probably double the amount of people that was there for the OpenStack one in the exact same room. That means anything. I was sitting there was MetaCloud, there was all the customers and everything else for the OpenStack one, and we filled the room twice as much. So I was shocked by that. I was like, really? Yeah. Yeah. They were standing for you. They all wanted to ask you questions. They weren't interested in anything I had to say. They're like, get in and shut up.
I wish there was like another World IPv6 day or event that
We should just have a flag day and shut off V4, right?
we could all rally around, yeah, to do something even more robust.
I was also surprised about how little talk about there was about the fact that, you know, Aaron's depletion is probably going to happen, what, July, somewhere. Today, we checking our, I didn't check the site today. We're still at 0.13.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, basically, I think Richard wrote that everything that's in queue for request for V4 will consume everything that's available. So the existing available pool, based off of the current queue of requests they have, everything is allocated. Yeah, the queue will exhaust everything. So it's already done. It's effectively already done, assuming that all the allocations get approved. That's it. So we're down to 0 for Aaron, which is a bigger deal than actually the other region, the other parts of the world, because we don't have reserve pool.
Can we achieve the other parts? It's like, yeah, there is some more.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I think for Ripe, they had a large allocation returned to them that goes back into their free pool. So they actually went above their original, their threshold number, and they went back up. And then, but they're still staying under the constrained number. They didn't have like a reversing plan, so they're still constraining, even though they went back above what the constraining number was supposed to be. It's a really weird policy thing. Anyway, how many folks are actually actively, outside of obviously the ones in production crew, actively trying to deploy V6 within their environment today? Is it most people actually trying to, or already have it, or? I know I'm doing it for customers.
I'm done except for front-end website stuff.
Okay, so active deployment. You guys are testing, right? So that means you have something running.
We deployed our own setup because the lab didn't support it.
Lab didn't support it.
We wanted end-to-end DNS, DHCP, everything online.
Okay. You obviously have it running.
Yeah. I haven't lab, I push the customers to go from day one.
It depends, because we have, we don't have in some of the parts. So constantly pushing other teams to deploy. Yeah.
You gonna get to school fully V6?
My department, computer science and CIS department is IPv6. We have separate connection outside the production network. So they're kind of using us as a test case.
You're also so you're teaching classes. You got full V6.
All our labs, offices, classrooms, our department. So the students from day one are learning to use it.
So you want to be recruiting out of his. Seriously, I mean, so one of the things I talked about from the task force perspective, I've talked to several major large institutions. I asked them how long it takes them to actually train up an engineer on V6. developer, network engineer, whoever it is, and it varies between 3 to 6 months to actually get proficient to the point where they can really, really use the protocol and feel comfortable. I'm not talking like play with it the first time and like, yeah, he's good enough, throw him out there and he'll survive in the woods or whatever, right? And if you look at the capital cost, the operational cost of keeping a body to train them for 3 to 6 months of time frame to get up to speed on a protocol versus learning it in school and coming straight out, that's a pretty big number, you know, in terms of investment. So I think it's actually something that people don't consider when they're actually interviewing candidates.
That's how the state of California deployed NOTEC. They had partnered with UCD and brought student interns in because there's a movement UCD for B6. That was helpful. But keeping in mind the state of California's deployment with their data center, sell to their own internal agencies, data center space, because there's limitations on where you service. In terms of data center service provider, it has to be located within the state. We saw that happen there. That was part of their success story. Doing a write-up on that success story right now.
I don't know. I mean, is that something where HR groups actually get involved and you're actually looking, when you're looking for candidates and looking for people that have skill set and expertise? I mean, how much time do you think that's actually value when you're interviewing or evaluating people? Is, do you have any practical V6 experience? Scott, do you have any practical?
Yeah, but my company, GTI, the marketing department posted our website, somebody sells.
Trying to arm wrestle with them?
Even though that hosting provider has a big address.
They don't click the button? I'm going through that. I'm going through that fight right now. Yeah, that's a problem I run into.
I've been searching for my new opportunities. I search for IPv6. Even though I see IPv6, there are like very few numbers, and you go see the job description, it's not really IPv6 oriented. So is it like using actually, or I really don't understand how far is a scope defined in companies, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, how far is it defined that they actually use or deploy IPv6? I wanted to know how it is.
Enterprise, or if it's a job description, apart from that, there's no IPv6 specific job, or something like that. A specific job tied to the program.
I did search through LinkedIn.
Well, to be fair, you're probably getting alphabet soup from recruiters. You know, they're just going through and they're picking stuff off so that way you fill all the check boxes that they and go through the file kind of thing. I had interviewed people to replace one of my guys when I was at Enterprise. Like B6, I had written CCIEs, working on their lab, and I'm like, oh, so you're written, and it's like, so how much have you been doing with B6? They go, I know about it. And it's like, what? You're working on like one of the higher end certs, and you don't even touch this stuff. And, it was one of my requirements. And I asked basic things like, how many bits in an action like this? And they could.
You don't ask the question. Tell me what the solicited multi-guest address is actually used for.
No, but I do ask, how do you find everything that's got 6 enabled on the land? The multicast pings.
Multicast pings, yeah.
And I asked him this stuff. I asked basic stuff. I'm like, what's a quad A record? I get complicated. What's an A6 record? No one knows that, but
yeah, well, no one really implemented that.
Exactly.
RC, so.
But it's like I have to gauge if I'm doing text screen, because that's just a screen part. They can answer at least 5 things out of IPv6 that I consider basic. You could pick it up out of the old primer I wrote, or Sylvia's book or anybody's book, just chapter 1 stuff.
Right.
And no, I'm not finding people out there doing it. So yeah, people coming out of school where they're teaching IPv6, you're teaching parity, please Let's teach them more. I got some old guys want to sit with.
The Cisco Target, 3 years ago, we grabbed the CCNA curriculum. IPv6 is taught alongside IPv4. Everything that we taught that we developed IPv4, we developed IPv6 is in line. So a whole generation of students that don't live, just thought, oh, that's how the world is supposed to be.
They teach them RIP NG right along with RIP.
It also includes all the routing protocols, CCNP, just does that, and that's all IPv4 and IPv6, all side by side. Just as much IPv6 content as there is IPv4.
I'm amazed at the resistance there are from pretty senior networking people that just don't want to learn something new. I don't know if you guys face that internally at all when you guys are dealing with any of it, but I am shocked that I do get to consult with a lot of pretty big, fair-sized organizations. I am amazed. People sitting across the table from me don't want to learn nibbles. They don't want to learn any hexadecimal. They don't want to learn longer address formats. They don't want to learn, they don't want to understand how neighbor discovery works. They don't understand how RAs function differently. They don't understand none of it. They're just like, I know how V4 works. I'm really good at V4. I'm hoping to retire before I have to learn this. Whatever excuse they want to come up with, but it seems to be a pretty common theme. What I'm hoping is that as V6 from a maturity basis for things like mobile providers and all the content providers doing it, LinkedIn, thank you for throwing that up there, is sort of forcing everyone to realize that, hey, it really is a skill set that I have to add. And if you're in this industry and you don't want to learn new things, you're in the wrong industry, as far as I'm concerned. It makes no sense to be in technology and say, like, I want to still, do my old job. Civil engineering, I still used all my equations from like 1941. Like, all my soils equations were the same. It's like, all that stuff stayed the same. I could practice that today and still do it. Not the seismic stuff, but definitely the soil stuff. And I don't understand that mentality at all.
I think it's true for not just V6. Nano, a week or two ago, whatever that was. Facebook did their huge Python tutorial thing, and it was a good mix of people. And they pushed out. They had to go back into the grand ballroom, one, because everybody needed power to the church laptops, coding for an hour and a half, and then two, because they were having like standing room, 300 people, 400 people, wanting to get more DevOps,
right?
Which is honestly where network engineering, system administration, traditional roles are going.
We were down at Cisco Live. The DevNet section was just packed the entire time. Learning that new tooling and Ansible and Python.
Yeah, I got friends who deal with graybeards. Okay, safe. I'm not gonna get pummeled. Who are just like, they only want to in systems. They didn't want to understand V6, so it was up to one guy to learn it all for the systems, get it deployed, and then his other guy couldn't back him up for any of the on-call end users with V6. He didn't want to learn, and it was really frustrating for a lot of people.
What would you suggest to those people who didn't learn yet, but you want them to learn, and they are hesitant? Where would you point them to go and just watch this video or read this book or whatever? What is the easiest way to catch and get to a significant level where they can evolve more? So what's the first step?
Do you have any thoughts, Scott?
Wikipedia. Usually I say, just want to learn what it is. It's got a pretty good site.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But kind of has a lot of different components and stuff. Then after that, break the book. How do you use this fundamental system framework? Get a little
If you want to know the protocol, the protocol books, Sylvia's book, IPv6 Essentials book, 3rd edition, Joe Davies' book, Understanding IPv6, the 3rd edition. If you want to just understand the protocol, if you're a protocol geek and you want to read in on the protocol, those are the 2 books I would sort of reference. But if you're just introduction, I think, Rick's book is an excellent introductory book set. You can skim through most of the beginning chapters of most of the V6 books. Like I cover these basic stuff in the beginning of my book. Scott Not really, you're straight in it. Security deep dive.
Rich produces a video.
Yep.
Content so easy to digest.
I'm
Probably more time for adults.
Well,
my content will come out on Pluralsight at the end of June or July. So I'm doing an introductory after the 6.1 for Pluralsight. So that education come out. I'm trying to think who else has right.
Sounds there's a workshop on it. I'm just curious. It's crazy. It's a little too compressed.
I think Jeff Carroll has he does regular introductory hands-on lab components at different conferences. So he's in Switzerland this week doing the one at the Swiss IPv6 Council's event. He's done it for several others. I'm hoping that he's going to do his at Interop because I tried to line him up to be a hands-on lab at Interop, an 8-hour hands-on lab. I'm trying to think who else. There's a couple. Ripe has some good papers, sort of introductory, getting started material that's worthwhile. There's a ton of videos that are available.
Go there. Place to go, like just go here or just go there, and then you can start at your level. But if you see,
well, Aaron's Get 6.
Internet Society 360 program.
Yeah, that would be a good place to start.
I would say Aaron has a Get IPv6.net.
I can't remember the Aaron's one. If you go to the Aaron website, they have it.
And then Deploy 360 program for Internet Society. Deploy 360 has stuff for DNSSEC and other things that are good for the internet. They have a whole section.
That's where I would start.
It's not one site, but there's a set of sites that
You just want to say, I'm not trying to sell these videos, but I'm just going to set a series of videos from Cisco class called Live Desk. So 8 hours of Rick talking about yeah, that's but it's and on my site though, on the presentation materials I did for that are all very valuable. There's a lot more videos.
If you want hands-on, you've got all Cisco's got their emulating, then you've got GNS3, drag Juniper VM images, and then if you want to play with hosts at the system level, again, log off Bird, stuff like that, to play with software routers, or even just ramp boxes in general.
Yeah, I mean, and the host operating system side has really good support. Every major OS supports v6 the way you would anticipate. I don't think there's any issues with any current stuff that I would consider to be ugly. Well, the DCP Slack thing that's a political war that's happening. That
just, if you're CentOS, Fedora, Red Hat, just make sure you're on recent copies. Don't use kernel 2.6.18.
Yeah, I think.
But people still have it in production. People still have to do a default route of 2000/3 kind of thing. So
you want to get on current versions of VMware if you're using their hypervisor.
Okay. We haven't enabled the backbone, so it can QStream everything that they run. We are appearing on IPv6, but we have the challenge with the product guys to get implemented on the application side, and we fail every single time. So that's what I was thinking about that if I could direct our developers and DevOps guys and all those, hey, look at that and they from site and make the two-way engage them, that would help.
Can you talk about what you did? Because you explained a little bit on the panel about engaging the application folks to get on board with understanding what their motivation was around v6 and some of the internal motives. You had that short list on your slide.
Yeah, I have this 5 reasons that I mentioned earlier. The problem with the applications, guys, is that this is a feature nobody notices. They don't ask for it. They don't want it. If you give it to them, they don't even know what it is. And it doesn't make it faster. It doesn't make it more secure. It doesn't, do something. So even if upper management supports it, you have trouble engaging the people who actually do it. I found that the mobile numbers really motivate these guys. pointing out what the percentage of T-Mobile was on, the percentage of Verizon, and how fast it was going up, because all of the application developers are mobile. And if that's the technology direction that it's going.
The other motivation was all the cool kids are doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really hard. If there is something but the company can monetize versus something it would be cool to do. And if people are already overloaded, they tend to go better to sleep than do something cool. Sometimes not.
That doesn't explain how many people are deploying OpenStack then, because it's.
But it's a complicated thing. But that was so. My question was maybe going towards or trying to go towards if there was a cool site where you go and get engaged and this is really cool. I want to do that and get engaged.
So I think
Sorry. So, hey, this is a book. Read it. That doesn't.
Yeah, no.
Fly well.
Well, I think the other part. I mean, a good point that Stephanie brought up was actually doing the plugins on your browser to actually start making people aware about when things are v6 versus v4, and just that realization that things are popping up with v6. So if you have it deployed internally for them and they have dual stack, and seeing that behavior actually coming up on the browser, and realizing, oh crap, there's a lot of sites that are v6 enabled, and I need to start paying attention to it. It's a daily reminder that something's there that tells you, hey, that's something we should be,
And you're Ustream, right? Right. So plenty of mobile streaming.
Yeah.
You got Verizon LTE. You got a whole mess of Europe.
T-Mobile.
Yep, T-Mobile. I have no idea about AT&T or Sprint, but we're here in the stateside. But take T-Mobile. If you're V4 only and you're using their phone as IPv6 only, you're going through NAT translation, basically. Maybe there's enough overhead in there to jitter, stutter, stuff like that. Look at your competitors. Take
what about the shortening the battery life? The more cycles you have to clock on a phone, you shorten the battery life of the phone too.
Take YouTube. Their live streaming is V6.
Yeah.
So
something that I used to do with the guys that helped is you ask them to hand you their phone. And then you go to, like test IPv6. And you show them, you're an IPv6. And so is everybody else in this lunchroom.
And we had an executive initiative around mobile that coincided with this effort at LinkedIn. And so that made it really real for people, the mobile connection to IPv6. Because around the same time, we were really diving into the cross-functional initiative around IPv6. All hands meetings for weeks were about, hey, we are going to focus on mobile. Half of our user base is accessing our site via mobile. And if we can't serve them, then it's going to hit our bottom line, basically. And so it was just fortuitous at the same time that was happening, this was happening. IPv6 global connection is very strong.
And I found that at the company, people weren't really aware of the connection between mobile and IPv6. They really weren't.
And you have to be careful because you can't say mobile IPv6.
Something else.
Because that's dead.
I do hear you about the cool factor. Like going to a cool site or something that makes it cool technology. So just along those themes, something that helped me with just the broad message was making these cheesy videos to show it all hands. The music was movie preview music. Very dramatic. Yes. But it had all of the basic information about IPv6. What it was, the running out, why we need to do it, what happens if we don't do it. Little 3-minute videos.
But if you think a year ago, internet traffic was 3% IPv6. Now it's 6, so it's doubled in a year. There's be a lot of jobs out there for bringing people to IPv6. And so if nothing else, career development should be somewhat motivating for people because that's definitely coming. more sites are going to move to it, we're going to have to know how to do it. It'd be more marketable as an individual if you can say, I've done it.
That's what we're betting on, right, Scott? You're gonna make your millions?
Yeah. Do it for yourself, just practice. You got your own website, own VMs out there, whatever you do, just do it yourself. Show them, hey, this is how easy it is, guys. I'm doing it.
Even for those that are coding, it's saying, are you using the most current libraries? Can you actually handle V4 and V6? This would be a challenge, like it's a mental challenge. Can I handle both? Can I actually deal with the situation of having both addresses coming at me? How do I store this stuff? These should be actually interesting problems for folks to solve, as opposed to just simply shoving it off on the corner and saying it's not interesting at all. This is stuff that could potentially break your application. I think I would want to know about that stuff, right? Early versus later.
And it does it. It's actually hard. They say you started the groundwork and did 80% between 2011 and 2013. It took us almost a year to do the last 20. I know the challenges I ran into with my piece, but they were the smallest part of the challenges. I actually think the biggest challenges were getting all of the apps in line.
Yeah.
And yeah, the work that it took to do that, and the amount of I think even the developers were surprised with how many things they had to fix, and that they would fix them and they would still be broken. And it was a really hard problem to solve.
And that's the problem. That's my problem. That allocating the resources for doing something, then actually this is broken, and fixing it and competing for those resources which would work actually on a feature or a review or something which can be monetizable. I find this rather impossible as of right now. Hopefully it will change, but right now it's extremely hard. Although I wish all the backbone, everything is that means it's ready.
So the argument becomes, as V6 becomes more and more popular on the adoption cycle, your pain threshold to have to change later down to be competitive, to continue being competitive, becomes a much higher cost, because the resources you're going to have to do in the time frame that you're going to have to do it, you need more resources in a shorter period of time to get the same workload done versus investing up front and being able to handle it incrementally over time. So yeah, you can wait 5 years. You will have 2 weeks. You'll need every single resource working nonstop, and you still might not make it, in which case you just go out of business. That's sort of like the trajectory of the long tail out. So those that are tackling it early.
That I have, it'll be harder later. Something that I found really useful for justifying the round and roundabout that something breaks is this. A lot of the stuff that we were seeing that was breaking IPv6 in an unexpected way was corrupt in the system. Things that hadn't been upgraded, an acquisition that had not been fully integrated, corrupt. Somebody hard coding an IP address, which you shouldn't do, and that's going to break on the next upgrade anyway. So I pointed out with a number of the managers for applications that IPv6 makes you clean the garage, and that this was actually a good thing, going through an audit of your system, of your data flow, turning up some of this stuff before it becomes a fire mill, and that they could actually put that on their accomplishments is I cleaned out my product. I fixed, this many bugs and
I wrote X amount of test harness configurations to be able to validate what is going to work. I mean, because that's missing for a lot of people, right? It's that testing side. Write a lot of code, don't write a lot of testing plans, right? So, I don't know. Is there any thoughts?
Oops, sorry. I was going to say getting executive support. Like at LinkedIn, we have a program for horizontal initiatives, we call them, and the whole company knows about them, and teams are required to dedicate resources to them. And we actually have a team that evaluates those projects and says whether or not they will become an initiative, and that really helps too. Like if you can get executive buy-in to say allocate budget to do this, and this is your like by putting it off, it'll cost you X much. Make your business case for it. That I think is what changes it for people internally too, because they don't have a choice. They have to allocate someone to do the work, and if you don't have volunteers, they have to give you someone.
Was there a specific leadership role that really advocated for you more than others that you might want to point out? In your experience in terms of
Yes,
the program?
it was kind of funny. It was people who were looked up to as technical leaders, not necessarily management chain stuff. It's people who are looked up to as somebody who is going to set a really good technical direction for the company, and not just a bean counter. Or, that's what made it really easy. The running numbers and money and how much you would save now versus later, you can't come up with numbers. But having somebody just say in a general way, this is the future, we have to go with the future, you can't hold up with that. It's the same thing as like selling blue jeans for $200. If you get certain people who are fashion leaders to wear them, people will respect that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to sell people the fact that you got to rip up the road and replace the plumbing, right? But eventually, all infrastructure has to go through that cycle.
I know in the enterprise, the biggest, what we've seen as the biggest limitation is technical debt. Many of them are late adopters, especially traditional brick and mortar. And public sector was no different. And they're always looking for the financial argument, and it is a similar leadership role that moved the needle for the state of California was somebody that came in and took the CTO role, who was respected. And that's how, after 8.5 years, that project finally got done. So, and that's fast for state of California.
It is a big state.
Not like the electric car. At first it's overly expensive, I don't really need it. It doesn't change the road that I'm driving on. It's not effective.
And it's a novelty.
It's a novelty, right? Now, unfortunately, V6 doesn't have anything sexy about it like Mr. Model S, right? I don't know if we're going to get around that. But, until there's like that inflection point where critical mass for everybody who sees a Model S driving down the road, you're like, oh, hey, electric cars, that's like a real thing. And it might still be a little while before you can actually drive it monetarily argument for it. Still recognize that it could be the leaders, in the industry that made that work. So, one way to another thing is, when I've been here for almost 2 years, so IPv6 just started to do that with advanced jobs. So actual testing and implementation just started to kick off. On my interview day, in the beginning, I came with that day there were around all the walls, doorways, bathroom stalls. It was stickers, some of you might have seen it. IPv6, not IPv6 enabled. It was a picture of a four-strong church, or a silhouette of it. And so, old legacy technology, yeah. And so that was one moment where I think employed the daily reminder. What they were using was the full protocol. Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, that is a great sticker. I wonder if anybody can reprint that.
Yeah, yes, we're handing them out.
Yeah,
Cisco.
we're handing them out. What happened to that supply?
You're handing them out? Cisco Live?
No, not at Cisco Live. Our last meetup was at Cisco.
That's
Cisco.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Back.
Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah.
Rock went around and stuck easily, a couple hundred of those Minnesota and very interesting.
Facilities makes sense.
Yeah, but
well,
it's funny because it is a visual reminder of every single time you're dealing with something that it doesn't support where we're going as opposed to where we're at. It's not a bad thing to remind people that about that.
And so much of getting buy-in is just saying it over and over. You don't feel like you're not getting anywhere, but people are listening, and it's kind of like subliminal messaging.
It's either that or they get sick of seeing you. Okay,
That's right.
shut up with the V6 stuff.
It's like, hey, we really should be putting some work into these. You know, every week to someone new and the same people now and then, and eventually they think it's their idea. It's what it works out. That's true.
Does it work for us at all?
Or you think.
Or you bake cookies? We don't have that skill. I wish I had this.
People actually call my cookies IPv6 cookies.
It's really good.
Yeah,
but you have to use a couple of meetings.
That's right. Get to show up to see what will be there.
Pies.
Fudge.
Can anybody come to your meeting?
That was the perfect thing, is we would get more than 100% attendance.
How long is this Mr. Bad?
There's this one guy, Michelle remain nameless, that would show up to some of our meetings and he'd like, no, careful.
you say it in the process, but I'm still kind of.
Well, I don't know if anyone else has anything else they wanted to bring up, but I just wanted to say before we wrap that thank you very much for LinkedIn for hosting and for allowing us to come in and chat, because I think it's good for the community overall to hear sort of what you guys have been through, for us to share some of the frustration of what's happening in the industry overall, and hopefully to provide some leadership and guidance for those of us to say, hey, these folks did it, there's no reason you can't. Are you saying you don't have the technical chops LinkedIn does? Throw that down on the table, maybe that'll work. Oh, so you're looking for your next job. You won't be able to work at LinkedIn. Where do you want to work? Google? Oh, you can't work there either. YouTube? I can't.
I won't be able to connect to LinkedIn to look for a new job.
Yeah. Anyway, just I think it's good industry pressure. I know both Microsoft and Amazon are working on stuff themselves to make things better on the cloud side. I imagine Google's doing the same thing. So I do think things will pick up within the next year, is my personal opinion about where things will change. Some of it I can't share publicly, but there are things on the roadmap that both teams are working on. So I think that's good news for those of you that are cloud focused and really trying to figure out what's going to happen there. Not perfect, but it is. I think it is going to happen sooner rather than later.
And it is important as well, if you're working on IPv6 related projects, have success, to let the community know about your success. So we also want to know about maybe things that aren't getting off the ground. That we do communicate with some of the other entities that I work with the folks over at Aaron quite a bit. I speak to their PR department about what's happening in our local community, the local community of California, specifically Northern Nevada. And generally, they're interested to know where the success and failures are occurring. So we greatly appreciate everyone for coming to this event. And don't hesitate to drop us a message if you're working on a project that's V6 related, because we'd love to do some investigation into how things are going. And then, of course, if possible, do another event like we did here with LinkedIn, report on progress, the success or whatever.
No failures. We'll help you to get around the failures.
Well, thank you all for coming.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thanks for hosting. Really appreciate it.